one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Angela, roll call, please.
Counselor Bronson,
Present.
Counselor Heggie,
Here.
Counselor Richards,
Here.
Counselor Sanchez,
Here.
President Pro Tem Thorstad,
Here.
Mayor Coleman,
Present.
Counselor Osberger.
Here. Let the record show that there are 7 present and no absences. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is consent agenda. There are 3 minutes in the consent agenda. You can always pull one out if you would like to discuss it or have questions regarding it, or you can make a motion to approve the whole consent agenda.
So moved as recommended.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Angela, please call for a vote.
Counselor Heggie,
Yes.
Counselor Richards,
Yep.
Counselor Sanchez,
Yes.
President Pro Tem Thorstad,
Yes.
Mayor Coleman,
Yes.
Counselor Osberger,
Yes.
Counselor Bronson.
Yes.
Let the record show that there are 7 yeses and no nays. Moving on, recognition of visitors and hearing of petitions. Is there anyone online who would like to speak? I have no written requests, so moving on to the next item on our agenda is under new business, request for council action, resolution number 7 for 2025.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I think we are all very excited to see this item on the agenda tonight. We've all been intimately involved in this recruitment process. And so just to very briefly recap, because it's been a very long process, our previous city manager left in August. We released a recruitment in October of 2024. After several rounds of evaluation, our police chief, Jason Ogden, did rise to the top as the top candidate. So in your packets today, you have a resolution and a contract to employ him in the dual role of city manager and police chief. And I'm just going to keep it very brief at that.
Do we have any questions of counselors? Anybody would like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve option 3, which approves resolution number 7 for 2025 as proposed.
I have a motion and a second. Angela, please call for the vote.
Counselor Richards,
Yes.
Counselor Sanchez,
Yes.
President Pro Tem Thorstad,
Yes.
Mayor Coleman,
Yes.
Counselor Osberger,
Yes.
Counselor Bronson,
Yes.
and Counselor Heggie.
Yes.
Let the record show that we have 7 yeses and no nays, and we are so excited. Thank you. And we will have a little swearing in at the end of this council meeting, but thank you for applying and being willing to step into this position, and for the PED for letting him take on 2 roles, and for the work that also Cecily has to do in order to make it happen, and the rest of staff. So we look forward to this. So moving on to the next item on our agenda is request for council action approving a memorandum of understanding for managed outreach and community resource facility.
Thank you. And I apologize. I'm a little teary now. I'm so happy. Anyway, so this is a request to approve an updated MOU with FAC. We had one in place from 2022 to 2024. It did expire at that time and it has been operating in holdover. There are not a lot of significant changes between the prior operating agreement and this one. The main change is that under the previous MOU, the city had committed to funding 100% of nighttime security to FAC. Over the past year, FAC has actually done a fantastic job of pursuing their own funding, getting more grants, dedicating someone to grant writing. And in that spirit, they are committed to taking on more and more of that share of the security costs so that we can step back from that commitment to them and support them in other ways. So the current MOU is structured over 3 years. The first year, the city will be responsible for 70%, and then it drops to 50 and then to 30. Once the MOU expires, we can renegotiate at that time and decide if we want to continue a security arrangement or some other form of support. And Adam, I believe, actually has some pictures just to show the difference between pre-FAC and once FAC opened. So So as folks may recall, before we had FAC, the old City Hall was actually the dedicated site for homeless encampments. This required a great deal of response from both Public Works for cleanups and responses from the police department. So we are incredibly grateful for the partnership with FAC. That has taken so much burden off of staff, less staff time, less cost to staff. And so we definitely want to continue to be supportive. With restructuring it this way, it's not a shock to their financial system, and it gives them a longer period to seek more and more grant funding or other funding to cover those security services.
Any questions of counselors?
Madam Mayor, may I? So I'm very grateful for what FAC has done and the partnership that the city has with them with this MOU. But I will say that I'm a little bit concerned because if they're going to be cost sharing with us, what happens to the procurement process and who gets to decide what security services are available and how are we going to share that responsibility? I don't know if that's included in this or not.
So we have a currently active security contract. We were going to continue to use that service. Basically, we will invoice them for their portion.
Thank you.
Any other questions from counselors?
It's not a question, it's a statement. When we took on the responsibility, and a lot of people in this room were part of that, as a committee and come up with a plan, we said we were going to take our city back. We have done that. Thank you, Sweet Home.
I will entertain a motion.
So moved as recommended.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Angela, please call for a vote.
Counselor Sanchez,
Yes.
President Pro Tem Thorstad,
Yes.
Mayor Coleman,
Yes.
Counselor Osberger,
Yes.
Counselor Bronson,
Yes.
Counselor Hagee,
Yes.
Counselor Richards.
Yeah.
Let the record show that we have 7 yeses and no nays. Moving on to the next item on the agenda. A request for council action, ordinance number 2 for 2025, adopting a camping regulations.
Thank you. And I'm actually going to turn it over to City Attorney Larson.
Thank you. So Mayor and council members, as you are aware, we do have, just as we just discussed, there is an arrangement with FAC for their continued operation of that site. However, there are people who get excluded from that site and there are people who refuse to go to that site. And so the way the city has been operating for the past couple of years has been that any camping within the city has to be in an area behind the police department. That has worked well as it can. I won't say it's free of problems, and Chief can certainly speak to that more than I can. But there is a place for those who are excluded from, or for whatever reason have been either excluded or refused to go to FAC. However, we don't have a documented policy for doing that. Under state law, we are required to have a policy that recognizes the social nature of the problem of homeless individuals camping on public property. And so we have a policy in practice, but not in documentation. So the ordinance before you is modeled after the one that's in place in Albany, and that is seems to be working well. I do not know of any challenges to that ordinance. And that ordinance was specifically written to address this state requirement. And so essentially what I did was take that ordinance and adapt it to our actual practice so that we have something that's been officially adopted that matches what we are doing and makes it clear that we are in compliance with state law. If you have any questions about it, it's before you. This is not something that I would consider an urgent matter. It's just something that needs to be done. And so if you have any changes or would like to discuss this more, I completely understand and am happy to take whatever questions you have.
So regarding this and the practice that we do, I have a question for Chief because we've been on tours with officials from the state at the facility behind the PD. And it seems like they are pleased with the process that we have. Is that what you understood as well?
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, it seems like what we have at the PD is working, although City Attorney Larson said, it's not going to run smoothly all the time, but we do the best we can with what we have. And at least we have a location that we can direct people to if they are excluded from the FAC property. So it gives them a couple of, opportunities to, to help themselves out. And oftentimes FAC will allow them to come back, under certain conditions. So it's not necessarily that they're excluded forever over there, but at least it gives them a place to land for a little while.
Great. Any questions from counselors?
Madam Mayor, may I?
Mm-hmm.
So 195.500 says just to have a policy. So I'm a little bit concerned about putting it as an ordinance when we already have a standing policy practice. And I don't want to pin ourselves in a corner by language. And so I have given the attorney article where Grants Pass has now been sued because of their ordinances that they have in their city code. And so I would just like to pause on this and have, I know CIS, our insurance, is an expert in this area, and have another set of eyes look over our ordinance to make sure we're not setting ourselves up for liability. I just do have a lot of concern about putting this as an ordinance.
City Attorney Larson, or maybe I should ask, are those lawsuits against Grants Pass, are those the same ones that were addressed at the Supreme Court in June?
My understanding is there is an additional lawsuit beyond what was decided by the Supreme Court. And it really goes to, unfortunately, the state statute uses the term that we need to have an objectively reasonable approach. And that is not defined. And so you're going to have a different person that says objectively reasonable means this for every situation. In Grants Pass case, I will say I don't believe it may be that they're being sued because of their ordinance, but they are definitely being sued because of their practice. If you read through some of the articles coming out of there, it is clear to me that there's definitely a crackdown, and there's definitely definitely reasonable minds can differ as to whether they are objectively reasonable. So it's not an easy thing. Homelessness has been rapidly developing over the past few years, and so there certainly are reasons to be cautious. When it comes to the council's options on creating a policy, really what the council can do is pass ordinances and pass resolutions. And those are the main tools that you have. And so if you would rather see this in the form of a resolution, something could be drafted to that effect. It seems clear that other cities have passed actual ordinances on this, which give the police a bit more teeth when it comes to enforcement. Because essentially, if you have a policy that doesn't have the backing of law to, the officers are not put in a good position. They don't have the ability to enforce that policy. And so that is why I believe that some cities take the ordinance route, because it gives officers more options. But that, again, like as I said earlier, this is reasonable minds can differ on this, and it's better to do this right than to do it fast.
And we are already members of CIS, so we would have free services to have it evaluated, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So I'm not opposed to tabling it for the next council meeting on March 28th, if others are not opposed to that.
I'm all fine with that.
I would like to table it until the next meeting to have clarification from CIS.
We'll place that on the next agenda.
Great. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is reports of committees. Are there any committee reports? We have the Health Committee meeting minutes in our packet and also the community resource list. And I think Councilor Bronson had some things about that. So
Health Committee, well, we have a rough draft of our goals for the year out. We'll finish those up and we meet again third Wednesday of the month. So be a couple council meetings out, but should have the final one by then. I'll report at that time.
and this community resource list that the Health Committee has put in our packet is something they've been working on for the last year and it was actually tasked of them. It's actually really beneficial to our community. So if anybody would like to grab it and give it to others, I think it's helpful for people to know what is available in our community. Any other reports from committees?
I have one more.
Yeah.
My notes here. It's been about 10 days back, I attended the Cascade West Council of Governments transportation, the regional transportation meeting, which is Lynn County, Benton County, and Lincoln County. And it's composed of all the cities in those counties, the county, each one of the counties with commissioners from those counties, the ports of Toledo and Newport, and the tribe. So there's 27 members in that group. So what do they do? One of the main things is projects within each one of the counties that are ODOT highway related. So they give updates of what's going on in each one of the counties. But the other thing that really pertains to us is the public transportation side of things. And that group decides on what to support and prioritize. For instance, it was last year, but one of the Lynn Shuttle buses here that operates out of the Sweet Home Senior Center, out of the community center there, that was purchased using funds from STIF, discretionary funds, and match. So the key thing is, where do you come up with a match? Well, it was that group that supported that as their number one priority of the list of priorities is that bus. So that bus came here to Sweet Home at no cost because the match was part of an STIF and from the counties that they directed, and the balance that was discretionary funds. So those are important things to be aware of what's going on and have a seat at the table. The other big thing was what's going on with the money. And so much of that money flows through the State Transportation Improvement Fund. That's that 1/10 of 1% that comes out of your paycheck. And in this legislative session, there is a push to increase that over the next 5 bienniums. So that's 10 years, a 1/10 of 1% bump each biennium. So I'm not saying I support it. I'm not saying I'm against it. It's just the fact that is in the state legislators' docket. They're working on that right now, and I'll keep you posted on what I know when things develop. But that could have a significant impact on the funding for public transit. And then the other side of things is federal money. And what affects us here in the rural is federal 5311 transportation funds. And that is an unknown right now. How much will actually come down, out through the budget? That could have a major impact on how systems like here in Sweet Home operate. That right now, the city of Sweet Home contributes $30,000 a year into that fund that is used for match for 5311. Admin, that's a 10.27%, or I'll put it cents on the dollars, 10.27 cents on the dollar match. It gives you 89.73. That's a pretty good return on investment there. That's used for admin. And for operations, it's a similar match, but it's 43.42. and the 53 other percent is the grant. So those are key pieces for keeping our local public transit running. So we'll keep you updated on what's going on there as well as those things develop. Any questions, you can ask me after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that update. Moving on, department reports. We have a few department reports in our packet. Are there any directors who'd like to highlight things?
I'm just going to keep talking about this until the event happens.
Okay.
I've given you all handouts for the Green Peter and Foster History Jamboree, which is happening March 28th and 29th. These are researchers from Boise State University that are creating a book about creations of dams in this area, and they want your stories. They really are most interested in oral histories. If you know stories, if you lived in town when the dams were built, if your parents, grandparents did and have told you stories, please stop by and tell your stories. If you currently live in a house that was built for when all the workers were here, bring pictures of that, talk about how the house, what size the house is and all of that. They want anything that you want to talk about. They will listen and record you and hopefully put you in the book. So please attend.
Really excited about that event and how it can honor the history of Sweet Home. So I hope people will participate. Any other department directors want to highlight anything in the reports?
I just want to add, if you haven't seen our little sweeper going around town, as of last week, it was finally repaired. It's running well. And if you haven't noticed Main Street, it looks a lot better. They were really dirty. So that's all I really need to add.
I did see that running today. Thank you so much. Looks great. Okay, next item on the agenda is reports of city officials.
I have just a few items today. The first one is that the Beautification Committee has set their weeding and planting schedule for this spring. So if anyone's interested in volunteering with that committee, you can reach out to me and I can send you those dates and put you in touch with their coordinator. And the big meeting and planting is in May this year. Also, we are still seeking one applicant for the Budget Committee. We have a vacancy and we don't have an applicant to fill it. So if folks could try to get in an application as soon as possible. I know we have folks who are interested in serving, but we haven't had interest in that vacancy. And then I also just want to thank all of you for the opportunity to serve as your interim city manager this past month. It's been wonderful and I look forward to supporting Chief Ogden as city manager. Thank you.
Yay. So the next item on the agenda is the mayor's report. I don't have another report except just to celebrate and to swear in a new city manager. So let's do this. So. Right. Jason, I'm going to read this off to you. You'll repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States and of the state of Oregon, the charter and ordinances of the city of Sweet Home, and to the best of my ability, I will faithfully perform the duties of city manager during the period for which I am appointed. And I just want to end with on Mayor's report. Thank you to his family as well, who are here tonight to support him and how they've supported him over the years and also in this position. So thank you all for being here. Moving on to council business for the good of the order. Any council business?
Madam Mayor, I just want to say congrats, Jason. Congratulations.
Any other council business? All right, I will close this meeting out at 6:54 p.m.